let's do our top five films of 1969. How about that?
Let's do it.
You want to go first?
Yep, I'll go first. I'm going to give an honorable mention to Easy Rider just because I haven't seen it in the Letterboxd era, so I don't have a star rating on it. It's a super influential movie. We talked about it. It's one that I think you should see regardless, just because of, what just kind of it's important to the era sort of thing. My numbers 4 and 5 are going to be very familiar because my number 5 is True Grit, and then my number 4 is Cactus Flower. Really, really like both of them. My number 3 is, I think, a very underrated James Bond movie, and it's called On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I really, really like that one, despite George Lazenby being James Bond. My number
What do you mean,
2,
despite? I thought he was pretty solid.
he is too. I just think he gets shortchanged by a lot of people.
What I'll say for On Her Majesty's Secret Service, it's not on my list. It's not an honorable mention, but the fight scenes for 1969 in that movie are crazy intense.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. Then my number 2 is another one we mentioned briefly earlier, but is Paul Newman and Robert Redford, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Love that movie. And then my number 1, as I mentioned earlier, is Midnight Cowboy. I think is just extraordinary.
So my top five is pretty similar to yours. A couple differences. I'll second your honorable mention of Easy Rider and throw in another, The Wild Bunch, which is Sam Peckinpah's like really gritty Western. 1969, like I mentioned, is such a really interesting transition from the haze era of the 50s and 40s, 50s, and 60s into this new era of independent filmmaking. And Peckinpah's Wild Bunch, it's interesting because I actually don't remember a ton of it, but I do remember the feeling I had watching it being like, oh my God, I can't believe they made this then. And then Easy Rider, you get the same kind of feeling. Easy Rider, I actually don't think is the most, we've talked about this a few times. I don't think it's a very entertaining movie. It's a total hang movie. It's just these two guys going around on their motorcycles, hanging out with hippies, trying to avoid Hicks and getting into trouble with Jack Nicholson. It's Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper who directed it. But if you're interested in the counterculture of the time, the two best things you can see are Easy Rider and the dancing scenes in Cactus Flower because they feel like they're right out of Austin Powers. And
Yeah.
but I'm getting ahead of myself. My number 5 is La Piscine, the swimming pool. This was remade into a movie called A Bigger Splash. Which I know you like a lot, Jake. I actually haven't seen the remake, but I saw this at the Metrograph, I don't know, like 2 years ago, and was like, wow, it's really compelling. It's just about 4 people at a retreat. Something happens. That's pretty intense. And then there's a fallout from that. But a lot of it is just like the interplay between the 4 people. The inciting incident doesn't actually happen until quite a bit into the movie. My number 4 is Midnight Cowboy. I don't think we've mentioned it, but John Voight is the star, the titular cowboy. Dustin Hoffman as Ratso Rizzo with the very famous line, "I'm walking here." That's from this. And this movie is really about their relationship and how New York is not what John Voight thought it was going to be. And that's a pretty big metaphor for the world is changing and isn't what we think it is anymore. My number 3 is Cactus Flower. My number 2 is Hello, Dolly. So let me just talk for a second about Hello, Dolly, because we didn't get a chance to in the podcast proper, but Mathau plays a sort of lifelong bachelor who's grumpy, and Streisand plays a matchmaker who doesn't have a match for herself. If you need a reason to watch this, despite the fact that I'm telling you it's delightful, if you like Wall-E, all of the songs in Wall-E are from Hello, Dolly. And the little clips he watches and dances to are from Hello, Dolly. And the music is incredible. Mathau can't sing, but he sure tries. It's a real lesson for George Clooney and Oh Brother Where Art Thou. And then my number 1 is Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which was on your list also. And Redford and Newman just killing it. There's one, I'd say it's just shy of being a perfect movie because there's a weird shoehorning of an original song while Newman and Redford's girlfriend ride around on a bicycle.
Yeah. Raindrops falling on my head. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad. That scene is actively bad. The rest of the movie is, like, aside from that, it's pretty much perfect.
Yeah.
This was directed by George Roy Hill, who also did The Sting with these two guys,
which is also amazing.
Yeah, and he did Slapshot with Newman, which is a lot of fun, but I don't like it as much as I think a lot of its fans do. But Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is the 3 of their most famous movies, and with good reason. And it has a gnarly ending, which was, again, just indicative of the de-evolution of the cowboy. And I just love 1969 for having all these very unique Westerns. It's like all it's missing is an Eastwood Western.
Yeah, seriously.